Hi, JJ. Can we do a quick test?
Hello. How's my audio?
We are going to turn it up a little bit.
Okay.
We can't hear you, so it's perfect.
It's consistent.
Welcome to the meeting.
You.
Mainly, I wanted to keep you talking so we could adjust the audio there.
Yes. My laughs tend to be a little louder than my speaking voice, but there
Go up one more
there
notch.
we go. All right.
Perfect.
let me see if
I think we're there. I appreciate it.
Great.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. We'll get started in about 1 minute here. Again, welcome, everybody. It is 6 o'clock, so I will call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. Please join me for a flag salute. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional First People of Sitka. With gratitude, we proceed on Tlingit Ani. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Present.
Mr. Mosher,
Here.
Mr. Yestad,
Here.
Ms. Carlson,
Here.
Mr. Celine,
Here.
Mr. Pike, and Mr. Christensen are absent this evening.
Great, thank you. As well, JJ, I'll do my best to acknowledge you. If you feel like you're getting skipped, please jump in and remind me that that you're on Zoom. So,
Will do. Thank you.
correspondence or agenda changes this evening. I do have two. First of all, item J, the executive session this evening has been pulled due to the unavailability of the municipal attorney to participate in that. And then item I, authorizing the municipal attorney to sign an amicus brief that supports resolution 24-13. This is going to be changed to a discussion direction tonight to see if we are interested in going forward. The municipal attorney has not had time to review and actually just recently received a copy, a first draft of this. So we can talk about tonight if we want to go further in the process, and happy to do as such, but was unable and unwilling to spend outside counsel money without the assemblies as a whole agreeing to that. So we'll start that as a discussion direction, and then if anybody wants to make a motion on that, we're well able to. Ceremonial, there are none, which would bring us to special reports. Anyone here for government to government? Municipal boards, commissions, committees, municipal departments, school district, students and guests. Seeing none, that'll bring us to persons to be heard this evening. This is public participation for any item off of tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Good evening. My name is Richard Wien, and it's good to be back. I'd like to welcome everybody to our island paradise in the North Pacific, where all goods and services depend and rely upon fossil fuels. And having been walking around Sitka with my camera and just kind of watching how the tourist season unfolds, I noticed that there is a heck of a lot of fossil fuels being utilized, especially when you stand in the Times Square of Sitka, which is at the crossroads of Harbor Drive and Lincoln Street. It's fascinating. One important thing that I think needs to be mentioned, and as a physician, I still continue to read literature. And one thing I've noticed is the enormous amount of literature which has been coming out as it relates to changes in the vaccine, meaning the COVID-19 vaccine, and the issues related to those who have received it. And there are very many peer-reviewed studies which indicate, problems. And the Ninth Circuit Court recently stated that the vaccine, well, it's not really a vaccine in the traditional sense. So things are changing. So I'd like to ask the Assembly to have a work session with Search, which would give the citizens of this town kind of an update as where they stand and where the current knowledge that they feel the vaccine is related to. I think this is very important, since Search was a major element in pushing the vaccine within the community and within Southeast. And I think that we do need an update. One important thing is that in my walking around, I see a lot of people walking around with popcorn. I think it's kettle corn. I love kettle corn. And so what happens is I begin to think about kettle corn, and I have a new metric now when I deal with economics for the city, and that's called the popcorn metric. Now, let's take an example. The city had to pay out $60,000 when there was an issue in fraudulent relations, and so they lost $60,000. Now, if you apply my popcorn metric, you have to ask the question, if a 6% tax brings in $60,000, how much would have to be sold to earn $60,000? And with fifth or sixth grade mathematics, you can figure out that it's $1 million worth of popcorn. $60,000 sounds like a car.
Thank you. Anyone else for, thank you.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Assembly members. I'm Rachel Roy, the Director of the SICA Chamber. I wanted to just come and give an update on our 3 top initiatives that we are focused on this year. Our board has met and reviewed, and these are the 3 that have come to be our focus, and things that you'll see lots happening around. One we continue is the housing initiative. Our housing is a very much a need in our community, obviously, and the workforce is really being affected by that. We are participating in the Housing Network. We just had the first Housing Network meeting this week, and it was really successful with a great turnout. So we're helping to support the administrative side of the running the network and supporting Amy with the city. Also, we have taken a lead in the high-density housing topic. So we are looking for people who are interested in collaborating with us and being a part of finding, what the challenges are, what the solutions, what the needs are for high-density housing specifically. There are other coordinators in other topics that came out of the Housing Summit. If you're interested in participating, now is a great time to get involved. We will have another meeting of the full network in late July. Our second one is the SICA Emerging Leaders Group. So that is going to continue with our monthly meetups as well as a workshop that's coming up in the next several weeks. We are also going to be having an Emerging Leaders Summit here in Sitka. We're really excited to spend some put in an effort to put together some professional development topics and get our emerging leaders together to be thinking about career development and personal development. Our third one this year is new, is the childcare initiative. With the huge need for childcare in our community, the Chamber will participate. We are already currently participating on a nationwide task force to look at solutions that we could do within our state of Alaska. And then also I'm participating with the Child Care Now group. We will have our fall speaker series will be focused on topics around childcare, and we're hoping that we can bring some examples, bring some experts in, and also help bring awareness to finding some solutions around that. Anything you're interested in knowing more about or collaborating with us on, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Anyone else this evening for persons to be heard? Anything not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, that'll bring us to consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A, approve the minutes of the April 23rd, May 14th, 16th, and May 28th assembly meetings. And item B, approve the following liquor license documents. A renewal application for Bayview Pub LLC, DBA Bayview Restaurant at 407 Lincoln Street, Suite 201. And 2, a renewal application for the Sitka Hotel DBA LLC, DBA the Sitka Hotel at 118 Lincoln Street.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any public comment? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve the consent agenda, Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Celine.
Yes.
And Mr. Mosher.
Yes.
And the motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item C, please.
I move to reappoint Roberta Littlefield to a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to reappoint Robbie Littlefield to a 3-year term. Is there any public comment?
Good evening. My name is Richard Ween. As you know, I come up every time somebody decides to serve the community on a board or commission and say thank you. This one is a little different because Robbie Littlefield is just an enormous asset to this community with her knowledge, both historically and culturally, and she's just a gem of a person. So I'd like to thank Robbie Littlefield for upping a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission, which is sometimes a pretty hard commission to be on. So again, thank you, Robbie. So I'll say it, Gunachish.
Any other public comment on the reappointment? Assembly deliberation? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to reappoint Robbie Littlefield to a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission, Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
and Mr. Celine.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 on item C.
Item D, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-14 on second and final reading, amending Title 15 Public Utilities of the Sitka General Code by updating Chapter 15.10 Water System, Section 410 Joint Service Connections.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-14. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-14 on second and final reading, Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
and Mayor Eisenbeis.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Item E, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-15 on first reading, authorizing the lease of Alaska Tideland Survey number 580 to Evergreen Properties LLC.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Amy. John, I understand Amy has an introduction on this one before we get going. Trying to get ahead of myself here. We always love to hear from Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Assembly members. Amy Ainsley, Planning and Community Development Director. So this item may be familiar to most of you. The request for a Tidelands lease, just C word, of course, when I say that, I have lost my place on the exact address, and I will find that for you. But the property, it's most commonly known as Schaefer's Trailer Court. The address is 2309 Halibut Point Road. So this has been a historic Tidelands lease. It was given to the city and borough of Sitka from the state of Alaska, and it's for approximately an acre and a half of property. It's already surveyed as Alaska Tidelands Survey 580. And the Planning Commission reviewed this request in August of 2023, and the Assembly also reviewed the request in September and gave us direction on a couple of the following items. The Assembly at the time affirmed that there was an upland owner preference for the Tidelands lease, and therefore competitive bid would be inappropriate. The term of the lease would be for 30 years. The annual rent for the lease would be 5% of the assessed value of the Tidelands. And the lease would also be conditioned on its continued use as a mobile or manufactured home park, and that any other uses of that land would be subject to future Assembly approval. And so we have drafted the lease with all of those terms as directed by the Assembly, and that lease has been finalized and is before you tonight for your consideration through approval by ordinance. If the ordinance is approved after second reading, that will also authorize the municipal administrator to execute that new lease agreement.
Thank you for your overview. If we have any further questions, we'll call you back up. Is there any public comment on ordinance 24-15? Assembly deliberation?
Just say thanks to Amy for all your hard work on this and appreciate it.
I'll just say thank you to Evergreen Properties for their understanding as we went through this process. I understand it took a little bit longer than they might have wanted in order to settle the estate of the Schaefers. However, I thank them for their understanding as we've worked through this process here. Sarah?
Right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-15 on first reading, Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Yested,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
and Mayor Eisenbais.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 on first reading.
So item F tonight is a consideration and award of the request for proposals submitted for available funds in the Fisheries Enhancement Fund. Tonight, we do have an opportunity for each of the applicants. There are 3 applicants for a total of about $48,000. We have 3 applications, and each of those applicants tonight will have a 5-minute opportunity to talk to the Assembly about their request. After that, Assembly has an opportunity to discuss. We'll make a motion, open it up to public comment, and then award those amounts this evening. So I have a list of groups here. So in no particular order, just because how they're listed. Alpha, if you wouldn't mind going first, please. I'm assuming you want your 5 minutes anyway. You look awfully prepared for it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I usually use up every minute, but I think tonight may not. I'll try to just give you the overview. Linda Benkin, I'm Director of Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association and President of the Board of the Alaska Sustainable Fisheries Trust. Alpha is a multi-gear fishing group based here in Sitka that represents fishermen in local, state, federal, and national issues. Our affiliated fisheries trust focuses on education, research, and direct investment to achieve triple bottom line solutions. Our members are committed to sustainable fisheries and thriving fishing communities. We achieve our joint mission through integrated programs that engage fishermen in conservation and management and support the next generation of commercial fishermen while contributing to the socioeconomic health of fishing businesses in our working waterfronts. We work with a broad array of partners, including Sitka Tribe and the Science Center, who are also applicants here today, and feel fortunate to come before you in such good company. We really appreciate the Assembly and the community's past support of our work and provided you with an overview of how we use those funds over the past year, both directly and to leverage foundation and federal funding to maximize your investment in our work. That leveraging includes funding from USDA through the Southeast Alaska Sustainability Strategy, the Regional Food System Partnership, Sea Grant to expand our young fishermen work, the Denali Foundation to support Sitka's community boatyard, Department of Energy to address high fuel costs and decarbonize the seafood sector, NOAA to build climate resilience into our fisheries, and the Rasmussen Foundation to promote sustained access to local fisheries for those of us lucky enough to live in Sitka or other Alaska coastal communities. As we work to secure support for our funding, for our programs, we're also actively engaged in catalyzing or expanding existing funding streams to better serve Alaska's fishermen in general and Sitka's fishermen in particular. By way of example, we expanded EPTIP's definition of community to include our community of fishermen, DOE's definition of vehicles to include Sitka vessels, and we're working hard to bring increased support and opportunity to seafood generally through the USDA Farm Bill. In sum, our focus is on lifting all boats, so to speak, in pursuit of sustainable fisheries and healthy fishing communities. and we continue to leverage any support we receive from the city to meet those objectives. More specific to the work ahead this year, as you know, our industry is struggling with high costs for operating, low fish prices, and a number of misdirected lawsuits. We're actively engaged on all fronts, from developing energy and cost-saving solutions to value-added direct marketing and direct engagement in legal challenges. We'll continue to do all that in the year ahead. Plus, with your support, we will continue to expand our young fishermen programs to enhance resident access to fisheries, on the water safety, and the economic success of our fleet in an increasingly complex and challenging environment. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today and for your support of our organization and our local fishermen.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next on my list, I have Sitka Sound Science Center. I'm assuming you'd like your 5 minutes as well. Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. Arlie Reynolds on the.
Right below you on the bottom of the microphone, there's a
There we
red,
go.
perfect.
Thank you. I'm Arlie Reynolds. I'm the new executive director of the Sitka Sound Science Center. The Sitka Sound Science Center is a nonprofit 501(c) organization. It was formed here in 2007 and is dedicated to increasing understanding and awareness of terrestrial, marine, and aquatic ecosystems of coastal Alaska through education and research. Our vision is to be the leading scientific and educational institution in coastal Alaska through innovative, inspiring, and community-centered programming. We are very grateful for the important funds that we have received from the fish box tax in previous years, and these funds will make a significant difference in our ability to enhance fisheries to benefit the entire community. We respectfully request the borough to provide these funds again this year. We serve the entire community. Every student in Sitka schools experiences our programs, and all of Sitka residents have access to enhanced fish that originate from our hatchery. This hatchery work aligns perfectly with the purpose of the Fisheries Enhancement Fund. Our facility is permitted for 12 million chum, 3 million pink, and 250,000 coho eggs. And we also, we produce these fish for charter, commercial, sport, and subsistence harvests in Sitka and Deep Inlet. We have a partnership with Ensera, for whom we provide 9 million chum eggs that returns about 12.2 million total commercial value to the fishing fleets of Sitka over the past 10 years. We also release about 400,000 king salmon here that allow people to actually fish for king salmon from the shore. If we are approved for these funds, it will enable us to maintain the hatchery production and enhancement operations. The monies from this fund go directly into supporting hatchery operations and staffing the hatchery. These positions are responsible for overseeing fish health, spawning, daily fish culture, tagging fish, water quality monitoring, research operations, and facility issues and other essentially hatchery tasks that support strong, healthy fish releases. Because of the small size of our facility, cost recovery fishing does not pay all the bills for our operations. We consider the fish box tax as a way of recouping from some of the users who benefit from Sitka Sound Science Center hatchery. The funds provided by the tax are vital for our organization and our hatchery, which serves all of Sitka. With this money, we will support hatchery operations during the upcoming season. We will also contribute to, as I said, the release of about 3 million chum, 3 million pink, and 250,000 coho here, along with 400,000 king salmon. We also train students here through aquaculture and training programs in all 3 high schools and the University of Alaska Southeast. And we're actually the only working hatchery that trains people to work in hatcheries in Alaska, and one of only 2 on the West Coast. In addition, we also educate visitors, including guided sport clients, about hatcheries and how salmon enhancement works in conjunction with wild salmon management and conservation in Southeast Alaska, and the important role of commercial sport and subsistence fishing in the Sitka economy, lifestyle, and culture. We are respectfully asking for $27,996, and the reason we came to that number is we know the Sitka tribe is asking for money to support the readout fishery, and we want to support their their proposal as well. So we're not asking for all of the funds. Thank you.
And the final request tonight is from Sitka Tribe of Alaska.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Felpach. I'm the Resource Protection Department Director for the Sitka Tribe of Alaska. No prepared speech. I think I was in front of this body earlier in the year requesting support to write letters of support to both state and federal agencies to encourage them to cover the shortfall on the Redoubt Bay Weir. Fortunately, those letters were a success. Both the state and federal government stepped up to cover that $26,000 shortfall for 24. There is no funding in place beyond that. The Sitka Tribe is working with the Forest Service to develop a co-stewardship agreement that would allow the tribe to take over management of the weir. But again, there's no funding in place. This is the first grant application along the process that we're looking at to secure fundings for future years. We are looking at additional grants for the interim funding to keep the weir operational, and we are looking at working with different federal agencies and our congressional delegation to find hard funding for perpetuity to keep the weir operational. Without the weir being in operation, there is a limit on the number of fish that that the subsistence harvesters can harvest. Without that in-season data coming in for the weir, they can't make in-season projections on the overall runs into the system. At 40,000, it triggers a projection of 40,000. It triggers the commercial fishery, which on average has harvested about 14,000 sockeye a year over the last 3 or 5 years. There's also been a significant subsistence harvest that, again, that increases from 25,000 or 20 fish or 25 fish or 50 fish up to 100 if we hit that 40,000 mark. So basically what we're doing is maximizing those opportunities for both sport and commercial or subsistence and commercial harvesters. That's all I got.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you. So the Assembly, having heard from each of the 3 applicants, this is our opportunity to discuss, kind of come to a somewhat consensus on what amounts we might want to see, and then the ability to make a motion. Chris, if you'd like to start us out.
Yeah, I guess I kind of have a question for STA, if that's we're able to.
Please, yeah,
Okay.
if Jeff's willing to come up and answer questions.
So with what you were just saying, we did get funded for this year to operate the weir, and this is more for funding for next summer?
That, excuse me, that is correct. If our grants don't come through, and again, we won't know, we're applying for Alaska Sustainable Salmon Fund and some other grants and working, but if that fund doesn't come through, there wouldn't be anything placed next year. If those funds do come through, it allows us to use this funding to continue at least a partial lake fertilization. The lake's been fertilized, gosh, for quite a while now. And this last 2 years, year before last, they didn't have the funds to fully fertilize it because the prices had gone up, so they did half of fertilization. This year, there has been no fertilizer placed in the lake. So if we've got all our bases covered to make sure the weir is operational and we can maximize those harvests coming in, then we'd be able to put this funding into fertilizing the lake.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions for Jeff while he's up here? Don't want him to run back and forth all night long. Great, appreciate you. Thank you. So me, I think we're fortunate to have 3 outstanding groups request the money. I always feel like there's never quite enough to go around on this one. I always feel like it's not necessarily one versus the other, because I know Alpha and Sitka Sound Science Center work closely together. In fact, if you look at their 2 totals, it perfectly matches the total. But I also understand Sitka Tribe of Alaska's request. I don't think there's anyone in Sitka who is not affected by a subsistence harvest there. And I'm trying to bring it back to kind of the Fisheries Enhancement Fund and what that should be used for. And when you look at Alpha's request, that benefits commercial fishermen only. When you look at Sitka Sound Science Center's request, it benefits commercial and residential residents. And when you look at Sitka Tribe of Alaska's request, it also benefits commercial and residential or residents. So, we've awarded to Alpha in the past. We've awarded to Sitka Sound Science Center in the past. So I think we've well established a precedent there. I was just kind of trying to see where Sitka Tribe of Alaska's request fit into that, seeing how it does have a commercial side to it as well, along with a local side to it. I think that it can. Unfortunately, there's not enough money to go around. The numbers that I had put in here are just an even 15 to all three groups. It gives them all some, but not what they needed. It leaves a small slush fund in there that perhaps it could be a special award later, an emergency award or something like that. But that's just kind of where I started out, but happy to hear more discussion from others on other amounts or validity of requests as well. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was my first thought is, and thank you for rounding that out for us. I was thinking about 15,000 each, so divided evenly, and leaving a little bit in there. But after thinking about it a little bit, a number I was thinking was 20,000 for Sitka Sound Science, 20,000 for STA, and 7,996 for Alpha. But that's just an idea, it's a thought. If anyone else has any thoughts, I'd be open to hearing.
If I could.
JJ?
Yeah, I ran 3 scenarios. The even split between the 3, looking back at fiscal year 2021, lines up with Alpha, Sitka Sound Science Center, and then that provides full funding for Sitka Tribe of Alaska at 24. And then the alternate, going more on historic precedents of more recent years, higher funding for Alpha and SSSC, and where does that kind of leave STA? It's a great question of kind of priorities, because they all do fit the kind of brief of this grant funding. And question for John, if you or our finance department is in the room, have we given funding in any sort to the Weir or any of Readout's operations in the past?
My understanding is yes, we have, and that was part of the mitigation efforts during the dam project, and I believe it was $10,000 a year, and I think it was for a 10-year term, and that has just expired for this year.
And was that for the Weir or other things? You said the electric department.
It was for Weir operations, but generally was used to purchase the fertilizer.
Okay, and I think what I heard from the resource protections directors 5 minutes was that this grant would go more towards operations. I think in the application it said staffing and more kind of direct, not necessarily fertilizer. That's a good question too, that plays into this. So 10,000 in the past, that would be about 15 to Alpha, 23-ish to Science Center, which seemingly tracks a bit to last year's more closely. In the simplest form, I think 3-way split. It's where we started this conversation. That's the simplest solution. It would give all of them some bump, and that idea of leveraging funds is critical to nonprofits, including municipal support in a capital stack does make it more appealing for others or more secure for funding from other sources. So I'm really up to anything that's been said in this discussion so far.
I'll throw out one part additional for me. I am willing to give Alpha and Sitka Sound Science Center full funding. And if Sitka Tribe of Alaska in their next fiscal cycle is unable to come up with money, at that time put in a supplemental appropriation if needed. The one thing that JJ did say that I may have some concern about is leverage. If STA can show city support right now, they may be able to further leverage grants down the road. So I wouldn't want to take that ability away, but that does allow us to fund both of those requests, which are longstanding requests, plus the STA request, which is a most definitely citizen-driven request. As I said earlier, I don't think there's anyone in town who hasn't eaten subsistence sockeye from Readout. So I think it can be very easily put in a budget in the future if need be. So to complicate it.
Yeah, this item has actually been really hard for me. I thought it was going to be easy until I saw the third request, and it definitely complicated things. As you all know, I wear a lot of different hats here. One is an assembly member, but also a fisherman and board members on other fishing groups. So as an assembly member, I definitely want to put funding towards the weir. As a fisherman, I would rather see that funding come from Fish and Game and the Forest Service. It's kind of their obligation. But that is obviously a challenge at the moment. So I'm not saying no to throwing funding that way to continue the weir program and the success of Readout Lake. It's been doing extremely well the last few years. And I don't want to see that starting to go away for any reason, whether it's just not manning the weir or losing the fertilization project that we've been doing in there. You know, the Science Center does a lot of great stuff. I see a lot of kids, adults down there catching fish that are reared there. Alpha does a lot of good. I know we were kind of pointing that they are heavily influenced in the commercial side, and they are. But a lot of their work that they do for commercial fishermen, sport and subsistence, gets to reap some of the benefits of that through sustainability and conservation, which in our resolution last meeting was kind of going towards that. And so though they are definitely a targeted commercial group, I think all user groups benefit from what Alpha does. I do actually like Stephen's idea of fully funding Alpha and the Science Center, and then maybe looking at a supplemental for STA for the weir project. I think that intrigues me. I'd like to, I guess, hear what everyone else has to think on that.
Kevin?
So from what I can hear, based on what we're all kind of saying, so no one really seems to know exactly what we want to do, because it's very subjective. Every single group has value. I know I feel like I would rather do the even split. So it seems like we got a couple people maybe doing the even split, or a couple people wanting to do Stephen's idea. Scotty, did you want to weigh in?
Alpha is avant-garde. They're looking out for the whole state, and I'm good with splitting it. You know, I'd have questions for tribal as far as how much of every grant they get goes to administrative costs or actually, you know, works on it, like the PSP lab. All three are good organizations looking out for the people, but Alpha really has its finger on the pulse, you know, and it's paying attention to the Department of Commerce, which is NOAA. And now that every ounce of black cod and halibut has a mortgage attached to it, while we're watching the global collapse of fishing, and out front in 2C, POP dragging has not been allowed since 1979. And that's an issue that a lot of people don't even know where 2C is. And if you look at trying to save what's left of Chinook in the Bering Sea, those draggers are going to want something if those fish are going to be taken away from their McDonald's goals. And the unharvested 5 million pounds of POP that has not been harvested since 79 with an 8% bottom black cod bycatch, which is going on in 3A right now. Alpha is really our only hope for a newsletter about what's going on, because people aren't really paying attention what's going on in the ocean, and then to really have it come home to, you know, why people can't keep a yellow eye or a lingcod when they pay $1,500 to go charter fishing, you know. And oh, by the way, charter fishing's not considered commercial, so I don't know, it's all up in the air. Thank you.
If you make a motion with even, it can be amended.
Okay, I'm
Would
gonna
be
make a
one
motion
thought,
just to
but,
get this
yeah.
moving. I move to award $15,998.66 to the Alaska Longline Fishermen Association, the same amount for Sitka Sound Science Center and the Sitka Tribe of Alaska.
Second.
Can I confirm that amount was 15,996?
Sorry, 15,998.66. It's just divided by 3.
8.66, down to the penny. I love it. The motion has been made and seconded to award each of the 3 organizations $15,998.66. Is there any public comment?
Good evening. My name is Richard Ween. When Solomon was asked to decide on a disputed child between 2 mothers, his solution was to divide the baby. Now, one of the issues is that that was a ploy. In this case, I think that division is the smart thing, and equal division is a smart thing. And the reason being is that all of these 3 organizations really represent a whole when you put them all together. And when you have Alpha, fishing is being totally under fire. And things are getting harder, the fish prices, how to motivate young people to get in, educating, doing everything. I'm telling you, the way things are going, it'll be difficult to sustain that. And so I think that they offer a very valuable aspect, and also what Assemblyman Saline had mentioned. The Sitka Sound Science Center also offers something very important, and that is in the sustainability by having the hatchery there. STA brought in kind of a new thing because I don't think the Sitka Sound Science Center or the Alpha will go under if they didn't get any funding. But it really became a little apparent until I actually go through their financials that it almost seems that the weir was up for demise. And so it represents something important to this community. And I think the differences in the amount really don't make a heck of a lot of difference. And so therefore, I think everyone needs to share within this bounty. So I support the motion because it is sensible. It is actually Solomaic. And therefore, I think it is the wise thing to do. Thank you.
Any other public comment on the motion?
Hello, Assembly. My name is Emily Scott. I am here to speak in support of Alpha's proposal. I want to speak a little bit to my own personal experience with Alpha's Young Fisherman Development Initiatives. When I moved to Sitka, I heard about the Crew Apprentice program that Alpha does. And I quickly matched up with an incredible skipper, Eric Jordan, who was a founder of the program. Through this program, I found so much purpose. I fell in love with Sitka very early on, and being on the water just fully emphasized that. I was lucky enough to be out with my skipper, who mentored me a lot in what fisheries policy looks like and what's important. And I heard a lot about Alpha through all of those days at sea. I'm lucky now that I get to work for the organization, and I get a hand in the backside of this program and matching up new apprentices, also training them, which has been very rewarding. I think that I'm in support as well of splitting evenly among our three organizations. Thank you for the support. And I think it would also be great if there was supplemental funding for the readout for the tribe, and being able to get the full funding for the Science Center and for Alpha.
My name is Eric Jordan. Thank you, Assembly members and staff, for the wonderful work you do for the community. And I support all three of these groups and have personal involvement with all three. I came to Sitka to go to school at Sheldon Jackson Fisheries Program, which is now the Sitka Sound Science Center. Several of my crew members in recent years have come from the Science Center. I facilitated the Redoubt Lake Sockeye Plan, which won an award for collaborative aquatic stewardship from the Forest Service. And that run has been rebuilt from just a few hundred to over 80,000 average escaping into the lake in the recent 5-year period, over 100,000 last year. It's one of the great salmon success rebuilding stories. I helped write the advisory committee proposal with our chairman, Stacy, to support the tribe's request. I'm a member of Alpha, even though I don't longline, and Linda Benkin is one of the greatest fisheries leaders in Alaska history and a mentor of mine. And the Crew Apprentice program has really blossomed from just a few of us starting. Catherine Klusmeyer, my first crew member that Linda recommended with the program, is coming with me for her 10th season again. I'm taking out people from Outer Coast, the Sitka Sound Science Center, and we have workshops here in town, and Emily just came back from Petersburg. The program is really blossoming. So in short, I support the equal split. These are all wonderful programs. For example, Redoubt Lake Sockeye now is the largest subsistence harvest of sockeye in Southeast Alaska. Over 8,000 fish last year into this Sitka community. And of course, what they're doing at the Science Center is also amazing. The success rate on their hatchery programs is great. And of course, Alpha's doing so much for everyone. My youngest son, Carl, just traveled to DC, and he had especially nice words to say about you, Chris, and the whole team and the work they're doing for all of us back there. Thank you, Scott. And Kevin and Mr. Mayor, I support the equal split. I think in this case, that is the best thing to do for all three groups and for those wonderful salmon and crew members.
Thank you for your consideration and your support.
Anyone else on the equal split between the three groups? Seeing none, one last time, back to the assembly. If anybody has amendments to the amounts or further comments? Sarah, on the motion?
All right, on the motion to award $15,998.66 to the Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association, the same amount to the Sitka Sound Science Center, and then the same amount to the Sitka Tribe of Alaska. Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Yested.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. It is a little bit early, but with this being about halfway through our agenda, not sure how long the next item is going to go. We'll go ahead and take a brief recess. Assembly members, please be seated when you're ready. We'll get going in just a minute here. All right, so we'll jump back into our agenda so that we can get out of here in a timely manner tonight, hopefully. So that'll bring us to item G this evening.
I move to authorize the municipal administrator to request a subaward in the amount of $149,979 from the Sitka Tribe of Alaska for the Department of Energy Grid Resilience State/Tribal Formula Grants Program through the Grid Deployment Office as the electric grid operator to support currently budgeted projects with a 30% match commitment.
Second.
John, I understand we have Bree and Melissa here to introduce this item.
That is correct.
Good evening, Mayor and Assembly members. Melissa Weilman, Public and Government Relations Director. Still getting used to that one.
Bree Gable, Sustainability Coordinator.
So we heard of this non-competitive allocated funding through the Alaska Municipal League back in March. So we reached out to Sitka Tribe and then realized it's too quick, too tight of a turnaround. But then they ended up extending the deadline. So we're super excited. It's due mid-June. And we teamed up with Rachel Worley and Jessica Perkins at Sitka Tribe. So the tribe has a sub-granting process in place. So we have that checked off. And they've made the 15% match commitment. They're going to use in-kind contributions associated with the technical and administration expenses. And they also are the ones responsible for submitting the application. So if approved, the CBS needs to commit the 30% match. And what we plan on doing is aligning it with funding with already budgeted projects. So this grant is suited best for upgrades and repair work already planned. An allocation will come back before the Assembly at a later date.
As part of the application, Sitka Tribe was required to hold a public hearing. The timing perfectly aligned with the Sustainability Commission's regular meeting. So we actually held it during that June 3rd meeting. Staff from the tribe, CBS, and the commission and a couple members of the public in attendance reviewed provisional objectives, metrics, and criteria for selecting which planned projects this funding could support. The commission did move unanimously in support of CBS and the tribe collaborating on this. This is the third year of a 5-year funding pool. So in the future, it is likely that Sitka Tribe will be allocated a similar amount in the following funding cycles. This could total about $450,000 of support over the next 3 years if we are successful. The first-time applicants need to go through a full non-competitive cycle, and there is no need to finalize a project at the time of the application, just identify common needs with the tribe. And in subsequent years, minimal information and a match need to be updated. So it becomes a little bit easier if you are a repeat applicant. So we are really excited about the possibility of collaborating with the tribe on this one. So thank you.
Appreciate the introduction from you both. If we have further questions, we'll call you back. Is there any public comment on authorizing this subaward?
Good evening. My name is Richard Ween. Clearly, any opportunity you have for a partnership, which will yield to obtaining funds, is good. And since this is a partnership, well, forget the feds, but between the city and STA, that makes it even better. One of the interesting things is that due to the way things are structured, it will go into upgrades and repair work, which I think is great, and not into some sideline opportunity as related to the electrical department. As was mentioned, it's a pass-through of or a request for 149,000 plus to the city. But what is interesting is the 30% match. And one of the things that I don't feel is kept track of very well in the city is the match. So we have this for a match and that. And it's funny how we think that that is kind of like no money at all. And I really wish I could go on to Open Finance and just open up how much we have in matches. It may burn something, but according to my new popcorn metric, if the city had to earn the $44,000 match, they would have to sell $748,000 worth of popcorn. And I think that's important to know because, again, $44,000 doesn't seem like a lot, but when you have to earn it through sales tax, you have to sell a lot of stuff. And I think it all needs to be kept into context because we do a lot of supplementals and we do a lot of matching. This is a great idea. I know you're going to pass it, and the partnership is outstanding. But remember, as always, where the money comes from. It's a lot of popcorn.
Is there any other public comment on this subaward? Assembly deliberation? Just a couple things on this one for me. I think this is one of those perfect partnerships that myself and tribal chairman have been looking for quite some time, where the tribe may have ability to access resources that we don't, but it all pools together to benefit every single citizen in Sitka. I know chairman has been really big on this for that and doesn't want one side too heavy on the other side. So I'm super appreciative of Sitka Tribe of Alaska coming up with this and being able to come to the table with something as well. It's amazing. It's going to help every single Sitkan. I love that our sustainability coordinator once again has brought something forward that brings money in, proving the worth of the position to the citizens. I think that this helped us score higher because this position exists and someone was able to work on it. And then finally, I'm really glad that this is coming from already budgeted projects. So there will be nothing coming later. We'll be looking at projects that already have a budget, and we'll be applying some of this money towards them. If you look in the fiscal note, that's where that money's coming from. So I think there's a lot of wins on this one. And I do think that the biggest win is strengthening our partnership with Sitka Tribe of Alaska to continue to make us one of the best government-to-government relationships in the state, if not anywhere in the nation. So I appreciate that. Kevin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to ditto that comment. I'm really pleased about this relationship and collaboration between the city and Borough of Sitka and STA. And I just think this is what it's about. And I'm really grateful, and hopefully we can keep finding things like that to plug forward. And thank you for the team for within STA and city staff for helping make this happen. Thank you.
Anything, Scotty?
Well, it's a good thing. And if we didn't have an enterprise fund, if we had a co-op for electric department, it would really start something off. Thank you.
Sarah?
All right, on the motion to authorize the municipal administrator to request the subaward from Sitka Tribe of Alaska, Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
and Ms. Carlson.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 on item G.
Thank you. Item H tonight is a discussion direction decision on supplemental funding for Visit Sitka. Chris, I'm assuming you just want me to keep going with that one? Okay. So the reason that myself and Chris put this on the agenda This has been a little bit of a interesting funding cycle for Visit Sitka. Previously, we've included some supplemental funding in the budget request, and that didn't happen this year. The Assembly had a couple opportunities to take it up, and at the time was unwilling to do so. That to me set its own message, and that's why on a couple times I just let it lie as well. But in talking with Chris, I think there's some desire in the Assembly to kind of change course, to realign goals. But in talking with Chris, I realized that right now we're in a position where the Assembly may not be 100% happy with what we're seeing, but we're not getting our doors knocked down by the business community. We're not getting people who pay in to Visit Sitka as members. We're not getting them coming to our doors saying that something needs to change. I also realize that there are a lot of Visit Sitka members who benefit from Visit Sitka. So while on our side we might see a change, I'm not necessarily hearing that from the community that does pay into and the community at large with Visit Sitka. So I felt it was worthwhile to bring this back for a last time to try to see if the Assembly was willing to do some supplemental this year. I think that there's multiple routes that we can go. We can fully fund the supplemental budget. We can fund the supplemental budget to a point and detail out some projects we want. I think we could even fund the supplemental budget through till December when their new fiscal year starts. And then that kind of gives us a kick in the pants as well to either change or to stay the same. I know when I spoke with Chris, and I don't know where he still stands on this, the Assembly does have auditability of Visit Sitka's books. While I'm not necessarily in favor of that, I think that does have two potentially potentially huge benefits for us. One, if we do an audit and nothing is found, then that gives us nothing to complain about anymore. Because we hear rumors and murmurings of this or that, and it would put all those to bed. It would put all those to rest if the audit comes back clean. If the audit doesn't come back clean, if the murmurings and rumorings that we're hearing that I think we're concerned about are true, then it gives us opportunity to reevaluate our relationship and change our relationship in the future. So I don't know that I 100% support it, but I kind of want to eliminate that off our table as one of our talking points anymore, where, when a clean audit comes back and we're able to charge forward with a different mindset there. So, none of this prevents anything from happening in the future on revising contracts, on going forward. So I think there's multiple routes that we can go tonight. But I think as a service to our business community, myself and Chris wanted to bring this back for a final, and it doesn't have to be a final consideration, but kind of it's kind of final in my book. If we don't decide to take any action on this tonight, that's where we stand in my perspective anyway. Chris, anything to add to that?
No, not really. I do want to point out, JJ's been working really hard on this as well and meeting with Rachel, and I know that she's probably got some great ideas too that she's been kicking around. So I guess if you'd like to add anything, JJ.
Now is a good time. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think there's many ways we can address this. And now is a great time because of how the cycle works for potentially changing or putting something out to RFP. We would need to know that probably within the next month in order to direct the municipal administrator to not send an extension letter to the current contractor. Typically that's happened in the end of April, the end of July, because I believe it's a August 1st date. Is that correct, John? Is it August?
That's correct. It's August 1st is the deadline for the renewal option notice.
Mm-hmm. So as one bit of what the mayor outlined where this discussion can go tonight. If we do want to go out for an additional RFP, that has to be now, June, to give the municipal, well, I guess not the municipal attorney, but the office of the municipal attorney some time to conduct that RFP draft language along with the administrator. So I've written down RFP ? Audit ? And funding for fiscal year 2025 ? As the three kind of broad topics I'd like to hear us discuss tonight. And I'm kind of open to all audit, new RFP, and supplemental funding for the current contractor of that Visit Sitka contract. The thing that catches me a little bit weary process-wise is we did not receive the updated budget until last Friday, after, 2 days after when it needed to come to us to get part of the packet. And if we were to allocate any money this evening, I don't feel comfortable basing it off of numbers and information that isn't out there public. This is a public process. I think inclusion in the packet is important for all.
Sorry, JJ, I hate to interrupt you, but I want to explain that one.
Yes.
That was on myself more than anything, because myself and Chris did not reach out to Visit Sitka to indicate that this item was going to be on. Once they found out, they did put that in. So you don't fault them on that one. That was me, because I wanted this to be more of an internal discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think that since that's not part of the packet, then perhaps funding for this upcoming year is a discussion for next meeting for my comfort zone, so that it can be out there for comment from the community. There were some like typos or clerical edits that needed to happen from the last budget that we as a group saw, for it to be comfortable for me to vote on a value. So this topic tonight then would be about audit and RFP from my perspective. I would support us requesting financial audit, third-party financial audit from the current contractor. There's pieces that don't quite match to, and I'm not a forensic accountant by any means, but my cursory look at these things it just doesn't. I'd like someone that does that for a living and has the right tools and skills to review finances of the current contractor. And on the going out to RFP topic, I'm still in kind of discussion. I haven't reached decision on that personally. I'd like to hear what the other members say. A lot has changed and transpired in the visitor industry over the last 10, 15 years when we took a deep dive at this contract. When we discussed it a couple of months ago, we were seemingly in agreement as a group to continue to look into it. And I think now is the time for us to reach a decision on that point. My inclination is towards submitting a new RFP to anyone interested in operating our convention and visitor services contract. It is a unique form of offering visitor industry support. There's one other, it's the municipality in the state that I found that operates through a Chamber of Commerce. Perhaps there's other ways to do that that are more typical to our neighbors around Southeast and in the state. And I'm open to exploring that. Thank you.
Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like comfortable enough to say, without asking you, just for the public who's listening, I don't think there's any suspicion of fraud or any type of malfeasance on the part of the chamber at all. Just to get that on the record, that's not even a consideration. I like the idea. I'm glad you guys brought it back. I think that was wise. I wouldn't mind, now that I've had a little more time to think about it, add a little funding. I'm not sure what level, but as far as the new RFP or doing an RFP, I think we had talked about it last time, not just to try to get another group, because we may, they may apply, the current contract might apply, and we might say, great, but also more to possibly update them as update the metrics and desired outcomes. As JJ pointed out, the tourism industry, visitor industry has changed substantially. So maybe we need to come up with some changes to what we're desiring, the outcomes we're desiring, and things like that. So that could be another opportunity to kind of refreshen what we want done. So I'm in favor of that. And I'm afraid in favor of adding some funding. The audit, I could go either way. If other members would like an audit done, then I would be in favor of that. And even just like Stephen said, so we can get it behind us and clarify things. I don't know what your desired outcome for tonight was, but I'd be interested to hear that.
I think one of my desires for tonight was to give Visit Sitka a little bit of direction of what we're thinking. We had it on the agenda a couple times and didn't discuss it. And, in a meeting with Rachel that JJ and I had, we were, she was unsure where their funding was going to be, because we never really said one way or the other, whether it was going to be at the 300 or if we were going to do some supplemental. And I felt bad about that. I understand that, that it made Rachel nervous with uncertainty. And I wanted to give certainty either way with this tonight, or at least give some sort of direction towards that, so that they know how to conduct their business for the coming year. That was definitely one of my big goals out of this evening. I wanted to talk a little bit about if we wanted to do supplemental or just some of the funding in general. Kind of talk about, right now we do it all out of the bed tax. I think with as much work as Visit Sitka has been doing for cruise, is there an avenue to use CPV funding to potentially fund them? How do we suss out that, how many hours are going towards cruise and how many hours towards other things? I don't know if maybe that is something that the audit would also be able to help figure out for us. So I guess those are kind of a couple of my big goals out of this evening. Originally the audit kind of came out because there was murmurings of potential blending between the chamber and Visit Sitka. So that was just a kind of an idea to maybe help dispel any sort of concerns that anyone might have. But then I started thinking about, well, maybe this audit could also be great for figuring out CPV use, potentially. I don't know if that is the case or not, but yeah, just ideas, see how the rest of the body, I guess, feels.
I'm liking I'm liking that, using the audit, you know, it's because I know Mitchner has talked with Dan Sullivan and trying to get all the weasel words for that, the passenger fund, so that you could really use it for something. And if that audit could prove that, that'd be a good hit. Good on you.
Yeah, I really like that, the discussion of the possibility of using CPV funds. I know that, like, a lot of us are, we're nervous about that, but, Chris is right. The Visit Sitka, works a lot towards the cruise industry as well, so why can't we get money from that? That would be, I mean, in my mind, it's our money. And the law is the way it is, but I think it wouldn't hurt trying to find out if there would be any, you know, directing John or Melissa or whoever to try to find out if that's a possibility. Maybe John could reach out to Clea. You don't know unless you ask. Did you guys want to throw out some funding numbers or so that John could prepare a supplemental appropriation?
So I guess my thought on funding numbers right now was approximately half, and that gets us through December. Because we end up in these weird cycles where their fiscal year doesn't align with ours, and so we approve an entire year's worth of our funding, which gets them past their contract date for renewal. So we're stuck in this limbo where we've approved the money, so we've approved their work plan throughout the year, but then we come up to an end of a contract year and we're kind of not able to do it because we already said go do the work. So coming into this, I thought till December was a great idea if the assembly is interested in jumping on a new RFP. If not, then I can go with the 575 because my understanding is it does not include TBMP, wayfinding, or the destination development. All three that I am not in support of Visit Sitka working on right now due to our hiring process of a tourism director. I want to bring them back into the fold and see what they can do and then start to divvy out some of those taskings. So I feel like in order to support our business community, in order to keep things going as is right now, you know, until the business community blows up our doors saying that Visit Sitka isn't working for them, I would support the full funding amount through December. And if the assembly is unwilling or unable to do an RFP in a short amount of time, then the full funding, the 575 that they had asked for.
I would be in favor of that full funding.
Through December or
Yeah.
through full year?
Well, I prefer through December if we're going to do another RFP.
I just wanted clarification of where you stand on
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think I can be on board with that. Yeah, I guess along with that, you know, we're saying that for potential RFP. Is that the discussion we want to have now?
I
Or
thought
is
we
that for
already,
another
I thought
day?
we were doing that right now.
Oh, I know. I guess I just don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, I don't have strong opinions either way, but if no one's, you know, if I had to ask my opinion right now, I think that would be the way. Do an audit, fund them through December, start the RFP process so we can update the metrics too. That's something we need to take another look at. John,
Yeah, John?
Mr. Mayor, when you say through December, do you mean December this calendar year or through December of a contract renewal? Right now, Tori, I might need your help if you can come up, please, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, I think that's why part of this is so hard
Right.
because, again, it's confusing.
My understanding is right now, with the option we executed the last year, they have $150,000 in funding already approved through December 31st of this year. Is that correct?
That is correct. We do
Base
have,
or supplemental?
It is the base contract, the $300,000 base contract we have paid out from January to June. And we have an appropriation in the accounting system right now that will take the 150 from July to December of 2024.
Okay.
So that's already accounted for right now.
So that was my intent, to match that July through December with supplemental funding, not base contract, because we've already got that in place.
Understand. And the supplemental funding usually does that also run calendar year, or does that run
No,
fiscal
the
year?
supplemental funding runs fiscal year. It runs with our budget from July to June, which has made it complicated.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, when you say through December, full funding, assuming that motion is made, would you mean a scaled amount of the full funding from now until December, or the full amount requested until?
A scaled
December?
amount, so it'd be half the contract time, so half the amount, so 137, just north of that.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, I was just going to ask you, because you seemed hesitant about when we said do another RFP. Are you not wanting to do that?
Yes and no. I guess it kind of depends when the tourism manager comes on, I guess. I don't know why, but I mean, maybe I'm totally wrong on that, but I was kind of, once we get the job defined, is there anything that there would be crossover that we don't necessarily need in the Visit Sitka contract? Or is there something that Visit Sitka, we're going to want to fill a gap that there may be? I guess that's my only real hesitation. I mean, at some point, yeah, this is going to have to go back out to RFP because the contract's over. But, you know, we just have a few things changing internally.
So you think like holding off until we hire someone and they get their legs under them and kind of, like you said, define the role?
Yes.
Yes, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm okay with that if I hadn't thought of that part of it.
And
I would be okay
in
with
reality, like, you know, I'm not like unhappy with Visit Sitka and the way they're performing. You know, they produce a lot of really great stuff that helps out, and they're doing what we want them to do. So I'm not unhappy by any means. Yeah, I don't know. I think things might be redefined here shortly with taking on a new tourism manager internally.
Okay.
John, a hypothetical for you. If we approve funding through December 31st or 30th, the end of the year, in this supplemental, there's then mechanisms that we would have in order to align it with their fiscal year and align it with our contract renewal. We could then use other supplementals. That would get us back on a more regular path. And then if and when an RFP decides to come out in the future, that funding source would be more aligned, or am I making it way more complicated than I believe?
I think it's getting very complicated right now. You know, we've got provisions in the contract that if the funding is only going to go through till December 31st, let's say, there's notification deadlines that we have to hit. So by August 1st, we have to let Visit Sitka know if we're going to execute the renewal option. And if we're not going to execute a renewal option, then they need to know, they need to have a 60-day notice that the contract is terminating. And I would submit that if we're funding them through to December right now, you're almost implying that we do not intend to execute the renewal on August 1st, or you would be executing a renewal with or if I did execute a renewal with funding over through December 31st, it's kind of approving something without funding behind it because of that time length. Does that make sense?
It does, and when we get a new RFP, we need to align these dates better because this is like the number one sticky point on all of this.
Every year.
Every single time, and I know Visit Sitka hates it as much as we do. Yeah, because on the flip side, if we give the whole 275, we've almost committed to extending the contract. So we're in an interesting spot there.
Mr. Mayor.
Please.
So why don't we execute the renewal contract, renewal for how much, 1 year renewal?
If you execute the option by August 1st, that would give a calendar year renewal of January 1st of next year through December 31st of next year.
So why don't we execute that renewal and fund however we need to fund to make sure they're funded through that period. And then talk about an RFP next year.
This will only cover till July 1st of next year.
Can I have to throw another curveball? And Tori already knows where I'm going with this one. When you execute that renewal option, we will have to come back with a supplemental appropriation for the additional 150,000 to cover the base funding, because that extends into the next fiscal year. Well, yes, correct, the whole 300,000.
JJ?
Is there an option to just extend the renewal for 6 months? Or is that a municipal attorney question?
Yes, I think it's a municipal attorney question. I don't think that there is because the contract specifically says 1 year renewals.
Okay.
Perhaps mutually agreed to, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, at some point there needs to be a 6-month shift, and there is no ideal time for that based on how the cycle overlaps on even 6-month degrees. It's creating a cycle that's seemingly turning to a spiral.
So yeah, why don't we, oh, go, sorry.
I know since JJ started to ask the question to see if it was one I might be able to answer, and obviously I'm not an attorney. I think if a 6-month extension were considered, I don't know if it would necessarily be an extension. I see the mechanics of that working would be stating that you're not going to execute an option year, but you go at risk by then asking the contractor, would you be interested in another, I won't use the term extension, a short-term 6-month contract.
If we did a 6-month contract, does it have to go out to RFP? It's not an extension or renewal.
I'd have to review code more closely, but there is potential for that. But obviously, in our procurement code, I think we have the assembly has the ability to waive certain aspects of our procurement code. But again, I'd have to look at it more closely.
I guess a big deciding question for me tonight, are there an assembly member, because we have 2 missing, or 2 absent tonight, not missing. Is there 1 or 2 assembly members who are willing to jump on this RFP right now and get this done in a very short time frame? If not, then I'm inclined for a full funding at this point. And then those assembly members or that assembly member that is still interested in changing things in the future, that gives them a lot longer time frame in order to work through the necessary mechanics. Because I think there'll be town halls, I think there'll be public meetings about all this, as opposed to presenting it quickly and getting it approved quickly. Because I don't think that's necessarily realistic. It's not realistic for me. I don't have the time right now in the summer to do that. So that's kind of my hang up right here, is if I don't have time to change it, I need to fund what we have in place right now.
I'm leaning more towards you. I personally, I'm a little busy at work right now, so I couldn't jump on that specific thing that you just mentioned, but I think we should just renew for another year, fully fund it, and then then try to get a couple members to work with John and staff, offer them a chance in the next, year or whatever, or less than that, obviously, to work on a possible RFP to bring back to the assembly. So I think for tonight, in my mind, one of the points of decision would be, are we gonna renew the extension? And then another one would be, how much do we want to fund them? And the full 575 is what you're looking at, Stephen?
Unless we have Plan B.
I don't have a plan B.
I think there's desire amongst some assembly members to see something different, and I think that process can take some time, which on a time frame, on a time scale, I'm willing and happy to be a part of and try and help through. But I can't present the assembly something by August. There's no way for myself. The other consideration that you didn't mention, are we going to ask staff to solicit for a financial audit? I believe that could be paid out of visitor enhancement funds as well, and go through that process so that when something comes back, then it helps guide our process through this RFP as well. And by something comes back, I just mean the finding, not a negative finding or a positive finding or anything. When the audit comes back.
So, I'm in favor of the extension for a full year, full funding of the 575, and then asking John to ask some sort of staff to do an audit. It doesn't have to be some comprehensive.
Not staff do an audit, to solicit for.
Oh,
I want
sorry.
an outside third party.
Yes, you're right.
Thank you.
Sorry, to get, it doesn't have to be a forensic audit, just an audit. I think that would help people with clarity. So those are my opinions.
Yeah,
JJ?
Sorry, JJ, go.
Go for it, Chris, sir.
Ladies first.
The discussion tonight really helped me kind of clarify my point of view on this RFP, and what Chris mentioned about this, tourism manager, CBS tourism manager role coming in, really swayed me. That person will have, daily insight into what is attainable from the city side and what should go to a contractor. So having the next option year extension with the current contractor makes a lot of sense, to give that new staff member time to understand the dynamics and, as Chris said, to get steady before things start to shift. And also, as the mayor stated, we'd have to do this a new RFP by August, and that timeline just doesn't work for multiple reasons. Our individual staff time, municipal attorney review, all the pieces that go into that. So I'm seeing many reasons why to do option year extension and RFP in 8 months or so to get it going for the next cycle. And then the topic of funding for this next fiscal year and the understanding of what's visitor enhancement and CPV. In the information we've received from Visit Sitka, routed through the clerk's office in email, does talk about kind of a plan to address CPV funds, and they've estimated at about 140,000 potential. I believe the plan is to cover that up front with visitor enhancement, and then if it all checks out, then to have that credited upon receipts from CPV. That's what I'm reading here in page 8 of the email. I'm having a hard time considering supplemental funding when I'm referencing an email and not something in the packet. That's a pretty big sticking point for me for making a motion and an appropriation tonight. I'd really encourage us to get this email in a packet and vote on it at the next assembly meeting.
Which can be the direction of this evening. the
Great.
assembly.
Thank you.
Yeah, if JJ would like that, and it seems very reasonable, we can put this off until, the funding portion at least, off till next some regular assembly meeting.
Yeah, if that's the will, I would as well co-sponsor a more thorough motion for next time, based off of our conversation tonight.
Yeah, I'd like that. You know, maybe we'll have Tor and Tim being able to attend and they can weigh in as well.
Yeah, I think Tor's had a lot of strong opinions, so
Yeah,
I'd like to hear his
exactly.
opinions as well.
Yep.
Co-sponsor again?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Okay, so then can I wrap up Assembly's thoughts? At this point, we're looking to supplementally fund 275,000. And I've heard back and forth on audit. Should I put it in there and we can strike it? Should I not put it in there and we can add it? Where are we going with that one?
Could we put it in and then strike it if that's the will of the body?
I'm
Yeah,
not
that's-
seeing
that-
anyone
yeah,
opposed to that.
That
so,
makes sense. We can always cut it out. If we
Okay.
want.
And then, maybe this is a question for John. While we're looking at the supplemental, can we look at potentially using CPP funding for this go around?
That's a big ask.
It is a big ask to do up front. I think CPV is pretty firmly set in law. So the best way to do this is, I don't want to use the term audit because I don't mean audit in the way that you all are discussing audit, but we would have to see allowable expenses almost after the fact, as JJ mentioned. We'd have to see those allowable expenses and then try to tie those to the law and then reimburse the Visitor Enhancement Fund, potentially reimburse with the CPV funds. But the first step is we have to ensure that it was spent and it was spent in a certain way before we can make that CPV call.
Anything else the Assembly is interested in bringing back in the memo and or motion that you can help myself and Chris with? Okay, sounds good. We will work on getting that written up in all my spare time here and all your spare time. And we'll have that on June 25th. So thank you, Sarah. You read my mind. On the June 25th agenda. Anything further on this discussion direction decision for supplemental funding? Perfect. Thank you all. I appreciate the discussion tonight. I think it was warranted and I think we made some progress forward. So our next item is a discussion direction on really what we're looking for tonight is are we interested enough in signing on this amicus brief that we're willing to hire outside counsel to review it and bring it back to us for approval? Or are we not interested in signing on this amicus brief? We have not had legal review. My understanding, Sarah, or my understanding is it may have been passed to our municipal attorney as recently as Monday. So, definitely no time there. And without that office being staffed right now, no ability to review. So I'm interested in knowing if Assembly is amenable to signing on or if we don't want to, because there will be an outlay of expenses there.
I do want to point out, I believe Ken, for the whatever Halibut Coalition or however it goes there, is online and able to answer any questions that we may have. I think now. He's
Yeah, I'm right here. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can, Ken. Thank you. Chris, if it's your wish, do you want him to speak to this briefly?
Yeah. If you can give us any sort of information that you may think.
Yeah, Ken, we're flying pretty blind here, so give us a guiding light, please.
So I was approached by the Halibut Defense Alliance to draft an amicus brief on behalf of cities that were signing this resolution that you all have signed. So I've drafted the brief. In order for the resolution to get before the federal court, it needs to be attached to something, and that something is going to be the amicus brief that I've written. There are a few other cities who are hopping on and other interested parties, some entities, but we're kind of making sure to vet them along the way. And really, I don't know how much about the lawsuit you know, so I can kind of try and give a quick background. It's that an amendment was passed limiting bycatch, and a group of Amendment 80 trawlers, they sued to have the amendment vacated. The people who put in the amendment, the National Marine Fisheries Service, they're named as a defendant. The Central Bering Sea Fishermen's Association, under which there's a bunch of other charter associations, they entered as interveners. And all three of those parties are very law-focused on their brief. And what I've been asked to do is essentially try to capture the narrative of the just everyday people who this affects and the cities who this affects. And so I am filing this brief on behalf of whoever wants to sign on. And so I've spoken with Brian, and his intent was to sign on your guys' behalf. But then his legal assistant, Mindy Lawrence, reached out to me and broke the bad news that I'm sure you're all aware of. And he, I guess, cannot sign now. So I am here, I guess, seeing whether you want to have me sign on your behalf, and or whether you have another attorney who you would like to have sign on your behalf. But if we're going to get this resolution before the judge, it needs to be attached to this thing I've written. And one last thing, as I try to keep it short, is that this is the first draft. We're going through quite a few here. And then I will, I guess, send it back to you if you have questions.
Ken, what's the timeline on this? Do we have another meeting's worth of timeline, or do we miss out if we don't sign today?
Filing date, June 27.
So it'd be tight, but it would work at our next regularly scheduled meeting. John?
I just want to add a bit of information. When Sarah and I and Mindy had the opportunity to kind of run through a punch list with JDO this afternoon, and this topic came up as one of the things on the pending list. And after discussion with their team, I was told to, I don't want to say caution you, it sounds bad, but to inform the assembly that it's best to put eyes on that brief first, because yes, a resolution was passed, but as signing on as a party, you want to understand what the goal of the brief is and make sure that goal aligns with the stance of the city. So until that is viewed by the assembly through our attorney or through a contract attorney or someone on your behalf, I would approach with caution if you have not seen it yet. But it sounds like there's time to view that.
I would say that I agree with that sentiment, if I'm able to. I think you guys should be putting your eyes on whatever you decide you want to be a part of.
Yeah, it doesn't get my signature without seeing it first. Chris, you had something, or?
Yeah, I guess some of the biggest questions I had on this was, one of them is starting to be answered, but the legal lift, I guess, on our end. Obviously, we're going to have this reviewed. But once we sign on, is there much that the city will need to do being involved in this case?
No, nothing at all. An amicus brief, the term amicus, it essentially means friend of the court. You're interested in the result, but you're not a party to the case. And so all you're doing is saying, hey, judge, this is how I feel. And you're doing that through the brief. And you don't actually have any financial stake or any other results other than the, I guess, long-term results of whether or not the amendment is vacated. It is like as simple as just like giving your opinion, hoping that it influences the outcome of the court case.
Okay, and then I guess kind of tying on to that is there any sort of legal repercussions that may come back at the city if we sign on to this?
I would say, based off of my knowledge of what I've written into this brief and based off of what you've written into the resolution, I would say that the contents are aligned. And so what the caution is essentially whether there are conflicting positions between what you guys believe and feel as an entity, as a city, as a legislative body, and what's in there. But I think it's also important for me to say that what you're signing on to, while it is a larger text, it's like 17 pages is what I've got right now. The amount that I'm referencing, Sitka, is essentially saying that Sitka, I am filing an amicus brief on behalf of the city of Sitka, and then saying, reiterating a paragraph and a half of what you have already signed in your resolution and including that. And then right there, I've add a citation that suggests the reader to go to the actual resolution.
Okay, thank you.
So were you?
If I may, yeah, the hand is, maybe I should wave it. Thank you. Questions for Ken. How many other Southeast communities are you working with for this amicus brief?
So I live in Homer. I'm a Homer resident. And I was at their assembly meeting yesterday and have been speaking with them. And am in discussions with the mayor here just about some content and kind of planning what again, they're speaking through me, you know, and so been talking with them. Cordova and Petersburg, I have not communicated with personally, but I think that is on my to-do list. I'm kind of being told who to reach out to municipality wise. And in most cases, the municipalities have somebody who can review it and sign it and make sure that the interests are aligned. And then there'll be a signee on the brief. I just, you guys are in a kind of a particular situation, obviously.
Yes. Thank you. And is there a chance that this amicus brief would be attached to another lawsuit, or is it written away where it is specific to this Halibut Defense Alignment goal?
I'm sorry, can you reiterate that? I lost you over Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Is there a chance that this brief could be attached to another lawsuit, or is it written in a way that it is specific to the current one we're discussing from the Halibut Defense Alliance?
Yeah, so it would be only this lawsuit. This is the only one that it's being added to and referenced in. The only thing that I think could happen, and it's a little far-fetched maybe, is that if the judge in writing their opinion references this brief, which is again unlikely, then there may be some reason if it gets appealed to, let's say, the Ninth Circuit Court or even farther, that it's again referenced, but I would put the chances at pretty low.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So John, you said you talked with JDO. They are, well, we'll be talking about some of that tomorrow, but JDO is a contract attorney in Anchorage. You discussed this and they are going to be reviewing this. Is that what is happening?
That is an option that's available, but obviously that service will come at a cost. I don't think it's going to be a very high cost. Or once we get the brief, we could just put it in the packet and bring it forward to the assembly for your comfort in going forward without an attorney's review. You've got a couple choices here, but
I guess I would prefer an attorney to review it. That's just my personal opinion. Because I feel like if we don't, we're kind of flying blind just a little bit. I mean, I believe if we just went on it, reviewed it and everything would be fine, but I would still prefer to have legal review. And then we can decide on this next meeting. I do believe this is a worthy cause, but I just want to be safe and cover ourselves.
I'd like to say that, but just so you know, I am an attorney writing this and I am filing this, and I'm willing to work with you guys. I'm doing all of this pro bono. It's something that's really important to me. My wife and brother-in-law are fisher in the fishing community. And if you wanted me to talk with you or walk you through the contents, that's something I would be able to do with you at no cost. And if that was at all helpful.
Well, I do appreciate that. The attorney that writes my sales contract from the other party is probably not the attorney that I use to review that same sales contract. And I'm not saying that your things are wrong or bad.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'm just saying I think I need our own.
I think my Wi-Fi is going in and out.
Review as well, not just yourself.
Okay.
I would. I appreciate your offer though, and I appreciate your help getting us this far throughout the process. Please continue to do as such. But yeah, I need to see it in my packet, number one. And I'm in support of spending a little bit of money to have an attorney firm look at this for us and give us, just to make sure that our interests are protected and that the municipality's interests are protected.
Yeah, I feel
Makes sense.
So I have no problem with, hopefully it is just a small amount, well, relatively small amount, to be able to have this reviewed and then put it in our next packet. And it sounds like it should be everything will be ready and timeline wise tight, but doable.
Scott, any opposition to that? Okay. JJ, anything else?
No, a question for John. Is there any balance in the current kind of contract services for the attorney's office?
yes, we do have a sufficient balance remaining.
Great, thank you.
Okay, anything else from the assembly on this one?
I just want to say how important it is, and it's really all connected. one of the reasons that Canada always over-harvests their halibut quotas, they got no faith in America stopping the money in the Bering Sea that's detrimental to the rest of the halibut that swims down here. And it's super important that we back them up.
Kevin?
And thank you, Ken, also to you for developing this amicus brief. They're up there in Homer and trying to get other communities on board. Appreciate it.
John, do you have the
Of course, no problem.
discussion or the direction that you need at this point?
I do.
Great, thank you. Anything further from the assembly on this one? Awesome. So that wraps up our regular agenda for the evening. That'll bring us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Thank you. Just Linda Benkin with Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association. Just wanted to speak briefly on this last agenda item and appreciate the time you're taking to look at this. I understand why you value having this review. I did want to let you know that Petersburg and Cordova have passed resolutions. We expect Homer to at their next meeting. ADAC is also looking at a resolution. The Petersburg and Cordova signed off on being part of the amicus pending a look at the actual language. And we really will appreciate your support of being part of this amicus as well. So thanks for taking the time. Happy to answer any other questions on the lawsuit moving forward. We are an intervener in the lawsuit in the defense of the halibut resource. Thank you.
Anyone else, please?
Good evening, Richard Ween. Time is money in private practice, and the legal confreres are very good at timing what their work is valued at. First question I would have asked Ken, I don't remember his last name, but I would have said, how long is the amicus brief? If it's 75 pages, then that gives you an idea of cost. If it's a page and a half, then you know that things are reasonable. So you have to kind of know what you're getting into, and it was just a very simple question. Ken, are you there? The other thing is that a bit confused as to the Visit Sitka conversation here tonight. You'll excuse me, but it seemed unfocused and a bit disordered, and I was very happy that it was postponed till the next meeting, and hopefully that you will be able to get some of the points that you really wanted to make out there and explain them. We heard that there was no budget, and I saw it in the packet. There was no budget. But also, we hear the concept of murmurs. We hear the concept of blending of funds. We hear the concept of an audit. One of the questions you ask your auditor is, questions. What are you auditing for? You just don't hand them a spreadsheet and say, go at it. You generally will ask them whether it's forensic or not. And I just didn't hear any of that. The other thing is that this is a lot of money. And it's kind of hard to hear people say, well, I'm too busy, so let's just spend the money. And I actually won't use my well, maybe I will, but I'll use the popcorn metric. $275,000 is $4.5 million in popcorn that has to be sold. And this is not little. And one of the other things is in the 2018 contract, which was in the packet, it was signed by Chris McGraw, and who obviously is a partner at the dock, et cetera, and represents the cruise lines. My notion is to make it simple. Have his partners pony up the $275,000 as a gift, because it's truly, they are the full beneficiaries of this. I want to see Visit Sitka funded, but there are other ways to do it. And the fact that CPD is all of a sudden this big legal thing, just look at Chris McGraw and his involvement.
Any other public or persons to be heard this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to reports. I had the opportunity to meet with our representative, Rebecca Himshoot, this afternoon. Had kind of a wrap-up meeting with her after the legislative session. She was a bit preoccupied when we were there, so we didn't get necessarily face-to-face time. So it was good for me and her to sit down and kind of go over some of the next year's things. One of the things I did learn that's either that, you know, I don't know where you would stand on it, but it was something for me that she is running unopposed for reelection this year. So unless there's a write-in candidate, it appears as if Rebecca will be heading back as a representative for us. Was able to give a couple welcome speeches to a couple groups that were in town over the last little bit. Really appreciated being able to do those and meet the people who come here for conferences and conventions. So I think it's one of the honors of this job is to do that. And then had a quarterly meeting with Chairman Woody Woodmark. Now we do those every so often, just in a casual environment for myself and Chairman to sit down and discuss good things, concerns, anything really. We don't talk about baseball as much as I think he would like, probably because I don't understand baseball as much, and I don't talk football because I don't think he's as into that. But I think they're just good casual meetings for us to get a couple things out on the table, and it helps strengthens our bond as I talked about earlier. So that is my report. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Mayor. We've been talking with Tyler Technologies. Open Finance is finally back up and running. The links were broken. We had that reset. But in that, Open Payroll has gone down, and it's interesting. We had a conversation about fiscal years and calendar years because that seems to be the issue. Open Payroll goes by calendar year because the payroll is a calendar year. So something's broken there now. We've got to get Tyler Technologies back on the line to get that one fixed. A couple good news items. Congressionally directed spending, CDS, earmarks, whatever you want to call them. Some good news. Both Representative Peltola and Senator Murkowski have put Sitka forward in the next step for $5.7 million for the haul out project. Still a long way to go there. Still deciding whether or not two people pushing that forward is a good thing or a bad thing. I can go either way on that one. They tend to not double up on efforts like that. But the fact that they are doubling up shows some more support and the community need for that, for the haul out project. And if that weren't a win enough, we also were notified that Senator Murkowski put us forward for a wastewater effluent disinfection system project that we wanted at the wastewater treatment plant for $11.25 million. Still a long way to go, but there's some big wins for us there. Thanks.
Thank you. Any liaison representatives this evening? Sarah, a report?
We have a number of openings on our boards and commissions, the Animal Hearing Board, Health Needs and Human Services Commission, the Historic Preservation Commission, Investment Committee, Local Emergency Planning Committee, Police and Fire Commission, and the Sustainability Commission. And then I also, let me find my little cheat sheet here. So beginning July 15th, that will start the first day that folks can file for their candidate filings for the municipal elections. So vacancies to be filled in the October 1st election. We have one mayoral seat and 2 assembly member seats. And then on the school board, we have 2 seats. So the filing opens July 15th at 8 a.m. and closes on Friday, August 2nd at 5 p.m.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other reports this evening? Seeing none, our executive session has been pulled, so that'll be adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you all for your time tonight. Thank you for joining us remotely, JJ. Appreciate it.
Good night.